First of all, here's the main menu. We're going to select the new game option because load game won't do anything, and quit takes us away, which is useless right now. First, there's an opening text scroll, which just provides context for the world and what you're doing, and then you enter your name, which is just a nice thing to have. Now we're on a menu in which you have to select which dungeon layer to explore. These have nice, helpful hover over tooltips, but I'll go more into that later. Either way, we select a dungeon layer and a dungeon is generated and we load into it. You can see in the top left here that we've got 5 days remaining. Now this is how long we have to reach the deadline of gathering enough gold. I realise I haven't specified the amount of gold needed anywhere in the game, but it's 500 at the moment. You can see that there are enemies spawning in these crypts, but calling them enemies is charitable because their AI does not work. However, there is a rudimentary combat system in that you can press a button and a janky animation plays and then the enemy falls over. This is where we're going to find our first treasure chest. These are represented by unbranded Amazon packages because I got them for free on the Unreal Asset Store and didn't think to make my own treasure chest. When you interact with these, they give you gold and disappear, which the gold is tracked in the top left corner beneath the days remaining. After wandering through the rest of the dungeon, we find the ladder that marks the end of it. Here we're given the option to either descend into another dungeon or go home. Doing some basic maths of 5 days to get 500 gold, I know that I need to gather about 100 gold a day, so I'm going to have to run a couple more dungeons. While I start wandering through this next dungeon, I'll mention that the difference between the layers is how much of everything they spawn. Up in the top right here, you can see that my health has started to drop. I've done this using a hotkey because the enemies are brain dead. This is, theoretically at least, the limiting factor on how many dungeons you can explore. The idea is that you go through dungeons and lose health in combat. What I'm about to demonstrate is that this carries on between dungeon runs, and this would mean that you have to weigh up whether or not to turn back or carry on, but if you carry on and die, you risk losing the day's treasure. This is where the layers system comes into it, because if you just need a little bit of gold but have very low health, you can just do a nice easy layer 1 dungeon, but if it's the first run, you might have loads of health and need loads of gold, at which point you could take the risk of doing a layer 5 dungeon. So I'll run through one more dungeon to get enough gold, and I actually get quite lucky with the treasure spawning in this one. But now that we've got about 100 gold, we're going to head home. And this is where the day progresses and you have to worry about being able to pay for heating, food and water. The heating starts as off, but each family member starts with a food and water token to last them for one more day, so you only have to worry about paying for heating. The idea of this system is that the player has to balance their income with their outgoings and maybe have to take some risks in not feeding their family. I was unable to show it off properly in this demo because of the limited amount of time I had, but if you don't pay for heating, people will get sick and you'll have to pay for medicine, which is expensive. And if you don't pay for food and water, the chances of the person who isn't being fed dying increase rapidly. These actions are going to affect what ending you get as well. At the end of day 2, however, you're going to notice that I don't go to bed here. After running through all my dungeons, I press the save button and then return to the main menu where I quit to the desktop. This is simply so that I can demonstrate my save system because I'm very pleased with it. So I'll launch back in, press the load game button, and it'll take us back to the dungeon selection screen just as if we'd pressed go to bed on the previous screen. From here, it's very much the same. I run through some dungeons and grab gold, making sure that my family don't die. I think this would be more enjoyable to both play and watch if the combat system worked properly. Unfortunately, I didn't get around to it. Now that we've reached the ending, because we had enough money to pay off the debt and all the family members were still alive despite my best efforts, we got the best ending. However, there are a number of other endings that can be attained based on whether or if you didn't pay off your debt or if certain family members were dead. It's also worth taking note that there was a bit of lag on this menu coming up, the ending screen, but I have now fixed that issue. It was just the way I was loading it up. So now, if you actually play the build that's on itch, it won't have that notable lag. This was just a simple demonstration and run through of my final major project for school. It's called Cryptkeeper 5. There's an itch.io link in the description if for some reason you want to go play it, but it's not particularly exciting. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much. Good night.